Okay, yeah, thanks everybody for coming to this sort of like, I don't know, this is going to be a meld of a planned session and our last wrap-up session and our shilling session and our end of the day thing. But if you do come up on stage, you can have one of these exclusive posters that are not also available down there for you to take as you leave the stage. So there's some incentive for you to come up. Local artists, very exclusive, never before seen in the real world. So there you go. Come and get one of those. But what we'll do is we'll start. The premise of this session is sort of like mainstreaming. I think we call it mainstreaming IPFS. There's a bunch of people in this room who have strong opinions or not strong opinions. It's a safe space here to chat about that stuff. And some people I've like secretly tasked with they have to come up later anyway if it gets sort of awkward. And I don't want to talk the whole time. But yeah, come on up if you have some thoughts about like how do we take IPFS from something that I think I'm supposed to use when I'm building my NFT smart contract thing or my peer-to-peer chat network to maybe just like the only way to build decentralized applications. It is the tool to do this sort of thing. And I think, we don't really hit you can't really call something mainstream until you don't really notice that it's there. If I think about things that are now mainstream, it's things that you reach into your pocket and you open an application on your phone and you didn't even realize that you were doing that thing. Or you're a developer and someone says, open your IDE, and you don't think about anymore what that IDE is. You don't make a choice that it's going to be Vim or whatever. It's just going to be this thing that you use. That is the sort of point we're trying to get to, I think, with the stack that we're building. And it might not be the stack that we have right now. It might be the stack that we're building forward to that we're going to see in the next 2, 5, 10 years. But at some point, we want the technology to kind of disappear or become ubiquitous. So I'm calling out to the people in the room to please come up on stage. Don't be shy. If you've got some thoughts about how we make IPFS ubiquitous, how we help it to disappear, that would be great. And I'll wait about 5 seconds before calling on someone who maybe doesn't know I'm going to call on. Come on up. Yeah, you got to come up. We've only got one mic, and it's in my hand.
I don't know if you can take him. He seems big. Oh, you don't have to fight. Right.
Yeah, you don't have to fight for it. I will give it.
So Travis and I joined this ecosystem because we were application developers, and we're really excited about building end-user applications on top of this stuff. And so I'm going to show something actually that Boris and I have been talking about for a while. Boris has probably been talking to other people about it too, which is sort of account-centric standards for the ecosystem. Like we've got UCANs that allow for some sort of delegation, but right now, Web3 Storage uses UCANs, WinFS uses UCANs. Their accounts still don't interoperate at the account level. And so like, what does a standard look like in this ecosystem so that when I, as a user, log in, and I want to see my files, I can see them on any IPFS implementation, and they're tied to me in a way that like I still have permissions, I have access control, I can, as an application developer, build, an interoperable drive, or, I can log in and see whatever. I'm at the foundation now, working on social impact projects. Those social impact projects, very few of them have the technical capacity to interact with the network as it currently exists. A lot of them need something simpler. The activists around the world who just need to like upload some files in a censorship-resistant way, a lot of them are still okay with Drive or Dropbox because, from their perspective, hasn't gone down. They haven't had problems with it, and they can use it in a way that, our applications, even though things are interoperable at a CID level right now, they're not interoperable at a user level. So that's my sort of pitch for something that as an ecosystem, it would be great if we set more standards around.
Anybody got a challenge to that? Oh, here we go. Look at that.
In my opinion, the best way would not be to attack the decentralized market right there, but like I think IPFS could make even more sense in the centralized cases. So, for example, it's like torrent is a content address platform, and it's a very cheap way to share files with people, and like that's a good argument why centralized people want to use the content address things. And so, I think in like many centralized applications today, we could like make them Web 2.5, where the database and compute is still centralized because it's easy. But then we can use IPFS for the assets and transfers. And then if IPFS is like the thing you use to transfer your Web 2 assets, jumping to Web 3, where we also decentralize the data structure using something like IPLD or another solution you like, could be like easier.
So I was censored when I was 18 years old, and that's probably driven like a lot of my work on the web and on the internet. That combined with my love for organizing things. And I think we have a censorship-resistant internet stack. We make it impossible for people to use it. So we have a lot of components, and just like that talk this morning said, thank you, Hannah. We need to build more systems, right? So. If we can take all of our Legos and package them up into sensible, coherent, really attractive, beautiful systems, I think that's what we need to go beyond the people in this room, people who love protocols for their own sake, and get to like real big global business and humanitarian use cases. So package up the stack of things that are for decentralized web publishing. Package up the set of things that are for version verifiable data, and give that to the AI boom that's happening right now. All those APIs, all those companies, they're changing like 100 miles a minute, and you're not going to be able to rely on those APIs for more than 9 seconds. So they need a base of reliable data to build on, right? So they don't, you don't lose all of the work that they've done. Like, this is a perfect moment for us. Package up all these components into beautiful, fast, seamless syncing. Whatever problem you want to solve, I think we need to do better packaging of our project, and then bring those packages to the various software communities, technology communities all over the world.
If people want to use IPFS, if you have a library or a tool or anything that uses HTTP already, I really recommend to just go for your passion, build IPFS into that tool. It can take like 2 years before you get there. I'm one of the people, as in, who made IPFS available in Girl. That took 2 years. It's just 2 years. There's another project called FFmpeg that took like half a year. I might start with rsync after this one, but I don't know for sure if it takes like another 2 years or 3 years. But anyhow, if you have like projects that want that already support HTTP, there's a bug tracker as well that tracks like interesting projects that have the potential to be IPFS enabled. So register your project there, or file bug report, and we can see if we can implement another one.
Can you just say that again? There is a list?
There is a list.
Where is the list?
I don't know the link just on top of my head. It's yeah, BFAYXY. No, I don't. There is a GitHub list somewhere about, I think it's called IPFS integrations, and then you have IPFS integrations. Okay? So,
Amazing.
That's it. Or wait. Does anyone have any questions about IPFS implementations? Who wants to build an IPFS implementation in like tooling or libraries, or am I the only one? Could any of you like name an application or library that would be your first preference that would have IPFS support, if it's up to you? Scheme? Git?
Mastodon.
That's perhaps a little bit more difficult than just a library or a tool,
Your
but
fishbowl
sure.
panel takes over the whole room. Sorry.
Browsers.
We have one.
Let's make a browser. Okay.
Over to Dan.
So I find it very hard to form habits, which is a shame because I have loads of really good habits that I would like to have. And one of them I would think about a lot is like I would set up this habit where I would set up on Fiverr or Mechanical Turk or whatever, and all I would do is like pay someone, I don't know, a Filecoin or whatever, to install and run IPFS. And I would just like get to record them, and then I would look and see what happened. Just do it every day. And I always think about this at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then the next morning I never actually do it because it's a little bit weird, right? I'd like to watch you install IPFS. But I think we would learn. I think we would learn a lot. I do kind of do a variant of this that whenever someone on Hacker News or Reddit or something says, "Oh, I used IPFS, but like I don't use it now. You know, I tried it out and I didn't like it." I try and ping them and say, "Can we talk about it?" And usually it's not. They really love the idea. They're really into it. I think there's still there's a huge amount of popular support for the idea of IPFS. You know, when I see somebody say that, it's usually in the middle of a discussion where people are talking about how cool IPFS is. And when I ask them, they say it's because of the high CPU. So they download Kubo and they run it for a bit, and it takes up a lot of CPU or it takes up a lot of network connections, and they turn it off. I think if we're crossing the chasm, my guess is there's probably an option people can set, right? There's probably something that would minimize that. But that, if I was to give you something to do, it would be when people take Kubo out of the box, even though we called it Kubo, they still download it and use it. If it didn't jump in CPU, I think we would get more people, less people bouncing off. That's just my thing.
I think those people should check out this IRO thing. I hear it's pretty good at resource management. I think that my take, how do we get to mainstreaming, which is put together, to the thing Michelle was talking about, put together a set of, you know, Boku components that go together in such a way that they unlock something. And this is where you have to prove that you can unlock something with these decentralized technologies that's way better than what exists before. And there's examples of this. Like, I think Filecoin is a great example of this, right? Like, yeah, you know, it's not like everything's perfect, but they put these technologies together, and in a year they had exabytes of storage capacity. You cannot do that with centralized technology. So we have sort of the same graph with Filecoin Saturn, where we were able to grow this network in a year that rivals the speed of networks that are 10 years old, right? And like if you look at the like current IRO demo, you can like have two computers next to each other, and one like uploads a movie and the other one can immediately start streaming it. It's because you've got this peer-to-peer layer, right? And they've got all this technology for, you know, doing that kind of streaming seekable requests. So to me, it's like find a way to put the parts together so you can do something that the other people can't do. And if you don't do that, then, you know, I mean, you know, maybe people will use it, but I think that's compel people to use it because they need to do something that only you can do. Yeah.
Thanks, Anna. I think that was great and took a lot of the words out of my mouth. There's a couple of thoughts that I have, and I've been thinking about this a long time as a developer advocate, just kind of like surveying the ecosystem and having a lot of these conversations over the years. And so maybe let me start by saying that when I was a teenager, I got into music production. Ableton was just kind of like coming up at the time, and it was a really exciting time to be making music because computers were strong enough to really make you be empowered You could do a lot of synthesis. And at the time, I was so excited, and I got a bunch of MIDI controllers, and I was just wiring it all up. And I realized that I didn't have enough of a music, like a formal training in music to be doing a lot of this. But I got kind of far, and I was speaking to a musician friend of mine, and he told me, I think you're too busy with the tools. You don't have an idea of what you're trying to create. Maybe try to flip that around, try to have an idea of what you're trying to create, and then find the right tools to do that. And so I think if we're really talking about technologies that are empowering users, that are increasing their users' their agency as agents on the web, I think it's important to look, who are these users who are joining the web? Where are they? And if you really look at where we're seeing increased internet proliferation, it's in places that didn't have internet prior, places like Africa, places like India. These are also, interestingly, just as a sort of side note, places where they don't have a demographic problem. These are the only places in the world where you're still seeing an increasing population. And so I think there's something really interesting about those places, especially because many of these users are joining the web directly on mobile devices. So a lot of these folks have never even used a desktop. And so what does that mean for us? I think, there was a hint made about, resource consumption. If you think that getting IPFS into the hands of, 5.3 billion internet users using Kubo, I think that's going to be futile. And so we really need to be creative. I think we can't be beholden to our past. I think we need to be willing to make some bold moves in order to get IPFS into the hands of more people, really as a tool to solve problems, as you said, Hannah. And specifically, I think, at least if you were to ask me, one of the biggest bets that I'm willing to make is that for it to be mainstream, for IPFS to be mainstream, we need to bet on the web platform, because that is the common denominator that brings together all internet users. So I'll leave you with that.
Thanks, and I appreciate going right now because I really want to build on what these last two said, because I think it's really on point. I've been an application developer most of my life. I joined Daghouse last year, and so I want to share two little anecdotes, one about the last year and one about actually the last hour that sort of illustrate the point, I think. One of the things that I've really found impressive about Daghouse is how focused they are on building a thing and building it, with some principles, with tools that everybody here is familiar with, but without being too wedded to a particular set of principles under the, behind the scenes. And it's not something that has been uncontroversial. The fact that, Web3 storage has been built on like these various centralized services is something that I think has been controversial in the past, but it allowed us to build this really scalable, really interesting, user-focused thing that solves a need. And I saw it again when Hannah gave a presentation about an hour ago about the proposed sort of Saturn-Daghouse merger. And the diagram that really struck me was it was a diagram of the two systems working together, and there were a bunch of red spots that were like the centralization. But then the next slide was like, how do we progressively work away from these centralized things? I think that has always been the way I've thought about building applications. Build the thing that interacts with the user, that solves a real user need, and don't worry about it if it's not really implemented in the ideal way, if the backend doesn't actually work the way you want it to in the long run, because it doesn't matter if you get that underpinning right if it doesn't actually solve the user need that is actually going to make your thing blow up. So I like that philosophy, and I hope we keep it going.
Yes, but don't walk away from the other stuff. Just because you get that VC, that sweet VC funding, you still gotta keep building towards the thing. Yeah. Also, because that will scale better and make your product better.
You're first. Yeah, go on.
I'm based in Beijing, China, so I think most of you guys probably didn't experience this. I've seen entire timeline on social media being censored. It's 5 minutes ago, you were seeing an article, you've seen a screenshot preview, and 5 minutes later, you were seeing just a empty image block. It says, this article cannot be found. I've seen that I think 11 months ago during Chinese New Year, when some incident happened, basically the entire timeline just kind of disappeared. So knowing that there's some technology that's able to solve that is something really hopeful. I mean, it almost sounds like a cliche that people say hope is a nice thing, but I think for some people it's really liberating fact. But back to the technical aspect, it's just that like IPFS never felt like as reliable as it could be, because I'm not sure, like BSwap can be slow sometimes, and if the file is too small, synchronization can be slow. And if you really want it to be reliable, you have to rely on a centralized pinning services. And that's kind of felt like defeat the purpose of using IPFS in the first place. And what if the centralized pinning service got censored? And although Filecoin was kind of like expected to be the decentralized pinning services, but my experience is like, as far as developer experience is concerned, like there's a big gap between IPFS and Filecoin, and that's quite like different from what I expected before coming to the ecosystem, because it always saw like a brother and sister project. It's supposed to be like be able to interopt. Like if I already have a CID on IPFS, I should be able to kind of pin that on Filecoin. So I'm not sure. Like, so I was exploring this area. I was really hoping to improve on it, or see other people to improve on it, or collaborate to make it better. So, and ironically, at the same time, IPFS is like the storage is much over provisioned. It's like there's so much unused capacity. So, like I'm not sure technically if it's as straightforward as it's sought to be, but I hope one way or another we can make it better. Yeah.
Hi, I come from a much different background than basically everybody here. I'm a designer, probably the only one here. And anyway, one thing that struck me about sitting in various sessions and then just discussions here at Textile is about data permanence and about these timelines, long timelines, and talking about governance things, and that's also about timelines. The internet is really old. You talk about the IETF, WC, these are old things. Things take time. And also as a designer, I've done loads of user research with loads of varied groups, from everything from genocide survivors to retirees to blind people. And one thing that kind of came to mind is one guy said, it's too old for us, talk to kids. And when we're talking about timelines, and you kind of, if you're trying to battle like these centralized systems and stuff, it's kind of too late, basically. So why aren't you talking to people who are just getting started, right? Why aren't you talking to kids? Why can't they make internets with IPFS? Why not? Why can't schools use IPFS? They got computers up that they're not using. They can control the resources. They don't got a lot of money. Why can't kids make web pages and put it on IPFS? They're good, they're creative, they don't care. And if you want them not to use Facebook, get them on something first, right? So that's my bit.
Oh, it is me. Okay. Great. Yeah, so I lined up earlier when some points were being made about making IPFS ubiquitous, but also like thinking of building products and something specific that is useful to users. And I think that's something that we've been really bad about with IPFS, is thinking about like we think of IPFS as like, let's make everybody know about IPFS, and like we're gonna decentralize the world, and we get around censorship resistant censorship and can solve those problems. And none of my family is technical, and none of them care about any of that. They have specific applications and use cases that I think we can build products for with IPFS on the back end. And I think that when IPFS bridges the chasm, nobody's going to know that it's IPFS behind the scenes. I think, thank you. Yeah, most people, most of those 5.3 billion users Daniel mentioned do not know what TCP/IP is, and they should not know what IPFS is. Yeah. And I'm the last up here, so I guess anyone else on the panel got something else? Yeah. There you go.
Hi. We talked about how to bring IPFS to the mainstream. But what should we, in the first place, talk about is how to bring our values, how to bring the mission of decentralization into the mainstream. Look, I'm 19 years old, and none of my peers care about decentralization or crypto economics or how these things actually add up to the civilization. Look, we are really going through a stage where we're no longer interested in the, political aspect of this. I live in Turkey, and you can't even build an app and accept payments via Stripe. That's really bad. Also, IPFS maybe focused too much on building the technology, the infrastructure, while all we needed was just killer apps, proposing our values and just telling the story. I mean, you listen to all those talks throughout this week, and all I noticed, everyone is building the infrastructure. I think that's a point where we should, maybe get a little interested in, because I personally made that mistake and spent years, maybe 7, 8 years, without building a product and getting any user feedback. It really didn't interest me at all. But now we're in a very dangerous time where no longer of my generation is really interested in the political aspect, the ideological aspect of this technology. Actually, IPFS has a very deep philosophy behind it. When you start reading about it, developing on top of it, I mean, what is Kubo? What is IPFS? Ask that to a stranger on the street. Do you know what Steve Jobs said about Macintosh? He says, we're building this for your grandma. We're building this computer for the garbage man. I mean, if we, as technologists, as people who love building, we should bring value to real users instead of just focusing on, how fancy our new infrastructure, new SaaS, or new protocol is. Because ordinary people really don't care about these things. But people care about stories. People care about values. But once you connect with them, it's easy. But as the IPFS community or the rest of the decentralized web thing, the Web3 as a concept, as a word, don't really now, it didn't leave a good impression on people because of the crypto scams, etc. But I believe we should focus more about bringing the technology and the values to my generation, because you are all nearly 30-year-olds, but you are building products and businesses, or you're developing technology for my generation, and we will inherit this. So maybe we should try to bring more killer apps and invest more into marketing. side of this before actually talking about the technical possibilities, because we are in a point where the technology is okay. Now, it's maturing, but where are the products? I mean, what made World Wide Web a thing? Why people use words internet or web or browser? You know, people adopted to these concepts because people use real products, and these things provide utility for people. So we should focus more about utility and storytelling part of this. Thank you.
Hello. I'll try to kind of describe the problem I think we have and some ideas how we can solve it, but I'm not sure if I'll succeed, but I'll try. So I think the reason I got really interested in IPFS quite a while ago, I think, was I was really dissatisfied how web was working. So-called user agents, browsers, where I used to work before, they called themselves user agents, but they actually did whatever server told them. They didn't provide any agency. And IPFS, thank you. And it felt like IPFS was a thing where you can actually turn everything upside down and do that, because hashes and all this stuff, it kind of allows you to have this metaverse where you can own your own content and bring it wherever you want. But I feel like we maybe got a little too stuck on the hashes and forgot about the user agency piece, because those are means to the end, not the end itself. And I think sometimes we forget to emphasize all the benefits that it can bring you. Specifically, again, user agency is that I own my data. In centralized systems, you cannot do that. That's why we have this set of apps that everyone recreates. All the big companies have this Office suite of apps. They don't interrupt at all. And you have to choose, like, how many messaging apps we have, and we have to have a consensus. Probably blockchain will do better in arriving at a consensus, which messaging app do we use to communicate with each other. While in the past, we had a protocols, and we were able to do those things. And I think IPFS is really well positioned to kind of address that, but we don't necessarily lead with that. And I think that is one thing we can address. Another bigger problem, I think, is if we do address that, if we unlock that piece, then the next thing would be like, why would anyone build an app for IPFS? Because right now, the way you monetize, you lock your users in a silo, and you really don't want them to go anywhere. If I'm building on this open system where users own their own data and I don't have any controls, and we need to offer some way to make them be able to support their work. I think there are some interesting ideas we can explore there, but I think we really need to think about how do we bring this platform, how do we build a marketplace where actually you not owning the users is for your benefit. I mean, there are a lot of interesting projects happening, but yeah, I think if we kind of lean more into that, we might be surprised how far we get really quickly.
Okay, I'm going to just, I'll be pretty quick. I wanted to tell a story of back when I were a boy. It wasn't all that long ago, but my friend David Diash showed me IPFS, and yeah, I added something on my node on my laptop, and then he managed to access the thing I had put on my laptop from a browser that went to like a gateway, and somehow it magically sucked the data out of my laptop. It found my laptop, I don't know how. It sucked the data out and then displayed it to him on a web page all the way across the world. And I was like, that's amazing. Have you, this is magic. And really, for me, that's what really excited me about IPFS. And I think that when you can do that to users and developers, that's what makes them want to use a particular technology. So I think if we did a bit more to just show that amazing superpower that we have, and it's not just that, there's loads of things in IPFS that are just incredible, and maybe we're just a bit too close to it to really appreciate it as much. But yeah, making the magic available for people to see, and I think people would jump to pick it up if that were the case. And also great developer experiences. If you don't have that, then it's not gonna work out. And that's all I wanted to say.
That felt like another storytelling meme.
Oh, my turn? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, how to get the IPFS to mainstream? I wanted to get started from my history. I joined the IPFS ecosystem from 2017, many years, and I come from China. I know all the history of IPFS and the Faircoin, how to get adopted in China. So if I look at IPFS and Faircoin from now to the back, you can see the full history of how content addressable network or content addressable web get adopted in China. The first is last year, the NFT and the metaverse. NFT and metaverse is super popular in China, but IPFS is everyone knows that IPFS is the fundamental layer of NFTs and metaverse. So IPFS is super popular in China, maybe beyond your imagination. I mean, not only Faircoin. I don't want to talk about the story of Faircoin here, but only for the IPFS, lots of universities and entities, even the government, they publish lots of research papers and survey and summary about IPFS, even gave lots of risk how to have better development in future in the future, in the evolution of IPFS. As the most important is not only IPFS and not only NFT and the metaverse. Another big traction driven by the government is data economy. We build in China. In China we build the West computation and the East data. The countries, the map of China country. The government wanted to put the computation in the West and put the data in the data is in the East, close to the user. So with the traction of the infrastructure building, so IPFS and also Faircoin technologies get lots of studies in China. That is point 2, the traction from the government. The third part is from the community. We have a huge big community in China of IPFS. And for example, we are building very useful feature based on IPFS, or another implementation of IPFS is JAWS-FS. JAWS means the first paper money in the world. That is, we focus on the data versioning primitive. Data versioning could bring bringing the data management layer for the machine learning and the AI. So that is the third traction of IPFS. It's machine learning and AI. We need to manage lots of data sets and models for the startups and the enterprise, and even for Web3 use cases. For example, Web3 Hugging Face. That is a very exciting area. We can build another standard or specification of IPFS. I think, to my point, I think the 3 point is very important in China. So welcome to come to China and connect to the China community to get the real situation of IPFS. Thank you.
Great. I wanted to just have one more thought beyond what has already been said. Actually, two thoughts. One thought was on the products question. Just leverage the fact that there's, oh, everyone's leaving me. Awkward. One thought is, for a lot of the there's a bunch of groups that are building infrastructure or tools and systems on top of IPFS that can give you a bunch of facilities to go and build really good consumer products. So as an example, with Filecoin, you get a bunch of like free storage. So with that, you could go and build like, we could do all of the data rescue stuff again, but now like take petabytes. Because when we tried to do it last time, we were barely handling terabytes, and like we heard about a few tens of petabytes and we're like, oh man, how do we like even move this? But now we can like go data rescue like all of it. And like that would be a good adoption pathway. The other thing is like you could do consumer products on personal cloud storage or things like that. So really leverage like the tools at your disposal. Building a business and so on will help drive revenue flow that will then grow the team and so on. The second thing I want to mention is growing the community a lot. So from my perspective, the most important thing that we need to do is just grow the community by 10x. If we can do that in like a year or two, that will solve a ton of problems and will help drive a bunch of growth across the stack in a lot of areas that we need it. And in reality, there's an enormous amount of latent interest. There's thousands to tens of thousands of developers that are really interested in IPFS and the tech that it makes and in the sub-problems. These are like really gnarly, interesting, fun computer sciencey problems or really fun product problems. And there's a ton of people out there that already know the project that would love to work on those kinds of things. What we're missing is a smooth on-ramp for those folks, easier pathways for them to engage, and connectivity and connection to the rest of the community. Especially a lot of people can't travel as much, so maybe more of us have to do more traveling to more places. One example of that is the community in India. So I visited India and Phil Bangalore last year, and I was blown away by the scale of the interest there. I'll show you a little bit later a video on what happened last year and what's going to happen hopefully this year. But that community was ravenous for libp2p and IPFS specifically. They were like, oh man, we want to learn like how to make all of these protocols. And these are like deep distributed systems students that want to learn and develop and grow and are super interested in developing open protocols. And so making a push in places like that and showing up in Force as a community and helping teach things, do workshops, help on board, and then maybe find pathways for them to support the work of various projects. That could help grow the community a ton. So, but I think that's one avenue. There's probably 50 other avenues that we could explore to grow the community.
We keep saying this word, connect. It's actually not a mistake that is the name of this series of conferences, plural. Why would you have a subdomain as complicated as Istanbul2023.ipfsconnect.org? Is Doruk still here? Hey, can you run Istanbul 2024?
Yeah, he's in.
Perfect. So we perfect. So we did it here because the point was actually to connect for a much wider Web3 community that IPFS is relevant for. And we've had lots of stories actually of folks coming in being like, oh, this is where some of the protocol nerds hang out. Okay, cool. I can get my problem solved here. Connect, as it were. So this is a theme. And the other part is patterns, right? So loops, patterns that keep growing that we learn from. So we invested in putting together an open source framework for presentations. So it's some software, we run it, we can keep adding it. Anybody who wants to run a conference, let me know, we can deploy a domain for you. And that's something that we can like keep using and we don't have to redo from scratch. Connect, connect, connect. We can reuse the speakers that are in the system and keep going. So my hope for 2024 is that Connect continues, we hand it on, and these are dark patterns from the past. I say that in a weird way. Barcamp, that many young people never associated with in the early 2000s, spread around the world. Somebody created a logo, did it in San Francisco. I did the second one in Amsterdam. And we took the logo and we changed the colors and we said, here's the Amsterdam version. That's been the design as well. This is the Turkish 2023 version. The 2024 version might get remixed again. Yes? Yeah. Come on down.
Here, okay.
We'll just keep fishbowling until they kick us out.
Very short question. Hello everyone. Merhaba. Hoş geldiniz. Is there any Turkish people around here? Okay, only one or two. So my question is, thank you so much for organizing this amazing event in Turkey, in Istanbul. But do you think that did you able to reach Turkish community?
Absolutely not.
So that's my question. I'm a game producer and I've been in the gaming industry since 2015, and we have lots of communities like developer communities. So why you didn't reach to us that we can share the?
I literally didn't get paid to run this event.
Okay, if you for the next year, please. I will be a volunteer for you. Yeah, definitely. So okay, definitely, I will definitely help you. Actually, my gaming company name is Recontact. So hopefully we will recontact next year in IPFS. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. You should stay. You should stay. It's fine. You'll be the first shiller.
Right. Okay. So I think we're gonna wrap it up. I've proposed this session, and then I came up here, and I was like, oh no, there's not going to be enough people talking, and that definitely was not the case. I know that Boris was taking notes while everybody was sort of talking about ideas, and some very passionately, some very cynically. But in general, most very positively thinking about the future of this thing. I mean, that's pretty important, and I've heard some remarks over here that I think that the future of the content addressable IPFS-driven web is there's a lot more in front of us than there has been behind us. So it's a really exciting time. I think this is a great opportunity to start thinking about running one of your own events in your own town. Juan mentioned that we need to get in front of as many communities as possible, and I really do think that the IPFS Connect model is probably the best way to do that, because it means people don't have to travel if they can run the event there themselves, and we provide maybe not a ton of money in terms of resources, but Boris has done the hard work of like getting the websites and things set up. So if someone says like, geez, I'd really like to run an event, but I don't know how, we do know how, and we should just give them the tools and let them kind of take it away. And hell, I'll send them stickers and stuff like that. We'll probably all do that, and we'll sneak some of our own in there as well. But the resources are there and available.
This is awesome. IPFS Connect is great. Like, I think we're really sorely missing this. I think it's going to help a lot. I might plug for whoever's going to remix the next one, considering adding like a node school style component or like a proto school style component as a workshop at the end, where like or the day before, where you hands-on help onboard people and like you build the thing or you work on something. That helps a ton to work through lots of problems, and you find good bugs that way and you help fix them. The second thing is like huge thank you to all of the sponsors that help provide this. Because in terms of hosting more, we should route a bunch of public goods funding to all of the groups that are going to go and host more. So let's together like commit to funding a bunch of these IPFS Connects around the world. So yeah, let's do that.